Everybody, sit straight, spine erect, chin away from your chest, eyes gently closed. Shift your eye gaze to the third eye, to the center of the eyebrows, Jyotishmati, the light of awareness within. Let's begin today's session with an opening chant. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome to today's weekly Satsang, where we are exploring the Karma Yoga, the path of selfless action and self-empowering action. Self-empowering action. So far we've talked about what is karma, and then what are the laws of karma. And today we're going to start exploring how to walk on this path of selfless action and self-empowering action to create the world of our choosing, to create our destiny of our liking. So let me share my screen. So Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is not about accepting the fatality, or karma is not about fate, or accepting that the situation that we are stuck in right now is somehow a consequence of the previous actions, either from this life or past lives, and then something that you cannot really do anything about it. But rather, karma is about transcending, accepting that there are some memories that get carried over from the from of your existing life or previous lives, or based on your conditioning from the past, like for example, your own DNA, but transcending that, using that as a power, but also transcending that to actually create the world of our own. And what we're doing in this workshop is we're trying to bring some of the related scriptures, so related the text from Bhagavad Gita, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and Mihalay FLOW, and Carol Dweck's growth mindset, and bring them together to study and explore this Karma Yoga. And the main purpose here is we're hoping that this information is useful to bring joy and excellence and exuberance in our day-to-day life, in what we're setting out to do in all the situations, whether it's a personal, family, professional, or in the broader community. And let's begin with the Dhyana Shloka of Bhagavad Gita. Pardaya pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grahitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavatim Astadashadhyayinim Amba Tvam Anusandadami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim. And like I said, so far we covered what is karma, the loss of karma in the last class, and today we are going to start about how to live the path of Karma Yoga, how to the path of selfless action, self-empowering action, and very particularly we're going to focus on Mihalay's flow concept. It's a very, very profound concept. I think this is something that we can actually use in our day-to-day life in all situations. And my sincere gratitude and my pranam to Sri Ramji or Ekaji from Ekashri Schools of Yoga, and who have actually imparted the key essence of Bhagavad Gita and Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and it's all their blessings. So, like we said, a quick recap, we said, karma is not about fate or accepting consequences, but karma is about taking control. Karma is about achieving joy in all the things that we do in every situation. And karma is also about, creating the destiny, not for ourselves, but also for the world around us, to something that is more harmonious. And a quick recap on the karma is, there are three types of karma: sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, and agami karma. Sanchita karma is the total pool of karma. Prarabdha is the quota of a karma, the impressions and the memories that we are supposed to burn through in the current lifetime. Agami karma is the new karma that we accumulate based on the actions that we do. And but this interpretation sometimes feel like you're stuck in this this cycle of the karma that is very difficult to break off. But the real interpretation of the karma yoga is that while we have these impressions like the DNA, we have the ability, by nurturing and cultivating skills like the yogi powers like Samyama, where we can keep our mind in a harmonious state, and with focus and meditation and an equilibrium mind, we have the ability to take control and create the destiny of our choosing. And this is the purpose of our Youth Excellence Center, YEC. And the actions that are performed in this state are known as Dhyana karmas. That means, the actions that are performed in the meditative state. And then in the previous, fatality kind of a mindset, they are called kleshajama. Any action that you do, it actually results in a residue, and then you're caught up in the cycle. And we also talked about the setting that we are all caught up in this. Once the universe is set into motion, we're all, every atom, even the empty space, on even our meditative state, they're all continuous state of action. And this is what quantum mechanics says. And that's what even meditative state as defined by Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So in other words, we are caught in this matrix of action. And the world is a manifestation of the karma. The manifested universe or manifested Brahman is nothing but, it's a manifestation of karma. But it should not make us feel somewhat helpless, but rather the sutra that actually basically says, like, we can actually take control of it, and we can make this be a harmonious world. Dharme kshetre kurukshetre, kshetre kshetre kuru dharma. Which, in other words, we can actually make this be a harmonious situation, and by creating a more joyful outcomes for ourselves and for the people around us, or for the universe around us, right? And then the famous shloka that we talked about, it is essentially says, like, we only are entitled to doing our right action, but not on the outcomes. And at the same time, we don't want an outcome be an influencer. In other words, we don't want to be hankered around the outcomes. Like, we want to get into a prestigious school, or we don't want to be a CEO, or we don't want to own a lot of money or positions, or whatever the outcomes are. I want to get an Olympic gold medal. While that can be a directional pursuit, you should have some goals, but we should not be hankered around it. In other words, if you don't achieve it, then you're broken down and things like that. All you're entitled to is follow the discipline, the abhyasa. And that's what Patanjali says, abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodha. In other words, and then the last one also says this, so the last line is, that while you don't have control on the outcomes, or you should not entitled to the outcomes, inaction is never, akarmani is never the right path. That means we are set out to act. We're always moving in the right direction, where we are trying to create a better world for ourselves, and the universe around us. And some of the laws of karma is, the karma essentially is essentially telling us that while we are caught up in this world of action, we are all free choice making agents. Karma completely aligns with the free will theory, that we are a free choice making agent. And then some of the rules that we talked about is, every action has consequences, but at the same time, not every action should not be a consequence. Or in other words, a consequence cannot be an action. In other words, we should not react to situations. Everything needs to be a conscious, deliberate, harmonious mind-based action. That is what is the Dhyana Shloka. And in some of the universal laws that we all know, the type of what you sow, social Europe, it's also said as like what goes around comes around. In other words, be conscious of the actions that you're doing. Always be established in harmony, and then always choose the right conduct, and that is the only mantra that basically creates a better world for us, and it eventually allows us to achieve the things that we want out to do, and in much more in a harmonious with the universal laws of karma. And the last rule that we said is, the karma, the action and the consequences, the results, we all bear the results of that action in any one of the roles, whether we are the direct perpetrators or whether they are the influencer, or we are just an approver. We're just an approver. Kruta karita anumodita, that's what Patanjali defined as. And eventually, when we set our mind in a harmonious state, in a meditative state, or in that Samyama state, that's when we cultivate some superpowers within us. I mean, those powers are already there. We will be able to invoke those Ridambara Prajna, which is that intuitive powers, so that you don't really, while you are a free choice making agent, you don't really need to do a lot of calculations in your head. Your intuition tells you, intuition powers you to make the right decision. And that's what we see. That's what we see when we see a tennis player or an athlete or a chess champion. The thing is, they are not really doing a lot of calculations to do, the profit and loss analysis or the stuff. They basically are in that meditative, the Samyama harmonious state, that they intuitively make the right thing. So that the intuition is powering their actions, right? So you no longer have to rely on your sensory perception and a lot of the mind's kind of, the computer logic to actually power this. And that's the power that's available to all of us. It's almost like the quantum power that is residing within us. And that's what we sometimes refer to as the divine energy within us. And we should be able to invoke that, the quantum supreme power, which is the intuitive power, and that can power our actions. And that is the Dhyana Jama, Dhyana Jama karma. So what we're going to do today is, continuing this theory, we're going to start about now that we understood the karma, and then what are the laws of karma? Now, what is the recipe? What are some of the rules that we could take in our day-to-day life to create that joyful and exuberance experience in every action that we do in all situations. At a very high level, there are two types of actions. It's a very, very profound insight. There are actions that are performed in expectation of happiness, and then there are actions that are an expression of happiness. It's very simple. There are actions that are expecting happiness, and there are actions that are simply an expression of happiness. And the first one is sometimes we refer to as a klesha jama karma, because you are doing this because you are going to get somewhere. Like, for example, if you're all attending satsang, if the satsang is because there is some either validation or invalidation, or it might get us into a better thing, then that feels like a burden. And then we always have to look at a chatter in the mind, which is like, should I go? Should I not go? Should I do this? Is this the most important thing? Is not important thing. But when you are attending a session, or when you are performing a session or any activity, when you're attending a classroom, or when you go to your work, if it's simply an expression of happiness, you're there because you have certain skills, and you're expressing the skills that you have, an expression of joy, and translating that into the action of the work that you're doing, right? And then you don't really have to worry about, okay, if I do this, I get some promotion, or I get some nice feedback from my boss or something like that, because all those things, essentially, if you look deeply, anytime you're actually doing something and expecting something, happiness, you're completely taking control out of yourself. you're putting the control on the other person. And if you look at the universe of the other person, you do not know what they're going through. They have a whole ecosystem, the whole universe in their family, in their mood, and what they ate, and all those kind of things. And they may respond, or they, for all we know, they may even simply be not coming, or they may be even in a hospital. But you are waiting for and expecting a happiness, and then we put ourselves in unnecessary misery. So the sutra for doing the right action is every action that you're actually doing, be conscious that let it be an expression of happiness. In fact, sometimes, even when the puja, the prayer that we do, puja essentially in Sanskrit is like purate jayate iti, the one that is expressed from the fullness. When you are in front of your deity, it's just be joyful, be grateful, celebrate the ambience, celebrate the deity, celebrate the ambience, and that should be an expression of your joy and your happiness. But if you actually go into the puja because either it's because of fear or because you're expecting something, which is like, hey, if I go to the puja, maybe I'll do well in my exam, or I may get a bonus, or I may get, some success here, then it's a trade-off, it's a transaction. And those things will only put us on a path of misery, down the road. So the net here is, every action needs to be conscious, harmonious. It's just an expression of joy that is within. And this is actually summarized so well in one of the Bhagavad Gita verse. And this is very, very, very popular. In fact, it also gives definition of yoga. It gives a definition of yoga. Sometimes we see this in many places. There is one very popular definition of yoga, which is all about yoga chitta vritti nirodha, and that is about restraining or controlling your turbulent mind and making the mind into a harmonious state. Is one of the very popular definition of yoga as defined by Patanjali. In Bhagavad Gita, there are several other embellishment of definitions and the yoga and how it can be used in our day-to-day activities. And the verse goes like this: Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga yuchyate. So the first line is Yogastha kuru karmani. This is one of the very popular definition of the yoga. First, whenever you are doing an action, first establish in yoga in the harmonious mind. Establish yourself in yoga, and then from that position, kuru karmani, do your actions, do your duties. This is an expression of happiness in your actions. Right? And that is what is the most important thing. Sangam tyaktva, which is like, don't be attached to the outcomes. Don't be waiting for something, happiness to occur and some good to occur after you perform the action. So the first most is yogastha kuru karmana. And then siddha asiddha, success or failure. Treat both success and failure as samo bhutva. Treat them as the same. Because, we do not know. Maybe in a very temporal scale, we might think that something is success or, something is a failure. But because we don't have that long-term view, and we don't have the perception of all the variables that are happening in the world. And that's the reason, don't interpret success and failure in a very linear and a myopic way. Treat both of them as the fruits of action. Accept them the way they are. Accept them the way they are. Samatvam yoga uchyate. That equanimous mind where we can treat both success and failure the same. Both praise and criticism be the same. Maintain a little bit of distance between the outcomes and you, the labels, good or bad, and you, because you are neither. And you are everything. And that's what we say sometimes in the 10YEC. You're 0 and you're also 1. You're nothing, but at the same time, you're everything. So this is a very, very popular verse that we need to keep this in our conscious, and make sure that every action before you're performing, particularly when you are in an unharmonious mind, if you're trying to go do something, oftentimes, it may not result in the right thing. Like, for example, if you're in a mood of, anger or something that is bothering you, and we can pretty much be assured that, in that state of mind, the words that you use, the actions that you do, the thoughts are distorted. It's a colored mind. And those actions are somewhat, they may sometimes, they may seem like, getting the right result, but in the longer term, they're not giving the right results. So always be conscious. And this is where some of the yoga techniques come in. When you are in an agitated mind, or when you lost that centeredness, and before reacting, actually those actions are nothing but just reactions, compulsive sometimes. If that becomes a habit, then it becomes a compulsive. Then it becomes kind of your distorted nature. So some of those things, like taking Ujjayi pranayama and doing some balanced postures, doing some kriyas, or watching some pleasant talk, or shift your attention to Jyotishmati. Patanjali gave us the 8 techniques, Ekatattva Abhyasaha, and follow some satsangs. And the thing is, do whatever the action that is there to bring you back into that centeredness, and then go act. Then always try to cultivate this habit of treating success and failure, siddha, asiddha, because we don't even know what is success, what is failure. What is success, what is failure? In a very linear, myopic interpretation. And that's what I sometimes share with the students. Your only direction is enjoy the process of learning. Enjoy be in the joy of learning, but not go there because you want to get an A. Once you enjoy the process of learning, enjoy what is being, in fact, be in the moment. If you only focus on just understanding, learning and understanding what is being communicated to you in the class, in the very moment. And if you make sure that there are no gaps in the understanding, and if you develop a keen sense of curiosity and understanding, the outcome is almost certain. But if you don't understand, and somehow you game the exams and this and this stuff, just enough to game the system to get an A. And who is winning? Who is winning? And that success is not actually a success. So we have a distorted perception, and we have some distorted metrics too. We have some distorted metrics. So I've seen a lot of people who think that they're successful, and the CEOs and all that stuff, but several of them, some of the very popular CEOs, basically said, like, even though we won this battle, but we lost the war. So don't be influenced by this external sense of metrics of what is a success, what is a failure, or even this stock market kind of a gamble, or which is a given thing. Somebody has billions of dollars, millions of dollars, if that's a success. No, that's not. Number one, it comes down to, are you joyous within yourself? Are you creating a joyous atmosphere for the people around you and for the nature around you? That is success. And that can be cultivated within. And that's what the verse is. And then in that same thing, but how do we create the joyful experience? How do we create the joyful experience in almost all situations? Right? Sometimes those situations may not look optimal for you. Right? You're working in a team where there are different dynamics, there are different skill sets, there seem to be different motives for different people. And even though you want to perform your best and your skills, sometimes, it may not result, it may not be perceived well. And it causes frustration. And, many of us actually, sometimes, we often hear this complaint where it's like, we're caught in some situations in the work where you're not able to utilize your skills. You're not able to utilize your skills. So this is where Mihalay, one of the very profound philosopher and scientist, and I call him as a scientist, anybody that's exploring and seeking the truth, and I call them as scientists, even spiritual or also scientists, and spiritual seekers and scientists are perhaps one and the same. He uncovered a theory. Uncovered a theory, and from his life experience, where during World War II, I believe he lived in concentration camps, and those are probably one of the, we cannot even imagine that in some of those situations, and compare that to what we experience at our workplace or at our home. These are nothing. But those concentration camps were probably the ultimate test of one's grit, one's divine powers, your challenge to the core, and you're being subjected to very high intense, intolerable situations in the body and the emotions and the mind. But what was very insightful for Mihalay was, he saw many of his fellow citizens in those concentration camps. They were actually leading a very joyful life. They were actually keeping them very exuberant and joy, and they were engaging in games of chess. And then he studied more. And then after World War II, that entire thing of, how is somebody in those most difficult situations, how can they still keep themselves joy, and then for the people around them? And then from his research, he studied some athletes and other people, and then he unleashed or discovered this profound insight. This is one of the universal laws, and that's a flow state. And that is something that we all can get ourselves into. And from his book on the psychology of creating optimum experience, and his definition is a flow state is something that we can aspire to, or not aspire to, we can actually achieve in every action that we actually do. The flow occurs, according to Mihalay, flow occurs when a person's body and a mind is stretched to its limits. That means we are actually employing all the resources that we have, plus a little bit more. We are stretching by about 10 to 20%. In a conscious, not being forced upon. When we are willingly, we are trying to stretch the ability of a body and the mind to accomplish something that is difficult, challenging, but then something that has a deeper meaning, something that's worthwhile to you, and a bigger purpose. And that's when Mihalay says the real joy happens. And the best part is, if you look at the words, it's a voluntary effort. It's something that you sign up for yourself. You sign up to stretch up your abilities. You're trying to give everything that you have, plus 10 to 20% more. And the third thing is something that has a deeper meaning and the purpose, a purpose bigger than you. Most of the time when he studied, the different, and if you look at people or us, when we are in a job and when we are in a different situation, we try to, work for, let's say, if you're only working there to money. What happens is, if you be very honest with yourself, there is no flow state within you. There is no sense of fulfillment. There is no real joy. You're only going there. You may sound happy. It may bring some certain things, and you may do some, something. But if you look really, when you are alone, when you're truthful to yourself, there is no deeper sense of that fulfillment, that you signed up for a purpose that's much bigger than, right? Or you're doing this because, because of fear, I might be losing my job. So what can I do to either because of, some things, or because of fear, insecurity? Both those situations are not the right situations. But it's something that is like you sign up for a purpose, and then you deploy all the means that you have, and then you push it in a voluntary way. And this is what Patanjali also says in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. What is the right practice? What is the right abhyasa? What is the right way of action? And Patanjali says, Prayatna Shaitilya, there is a typo here, Prayatna Shaitilya Ananta Samapattebhyam. When you prayatna, when you put all the effort, about 10 to 20%, like what Mihalay said, give everything that you have and stretch it. And then when you put that practice, and then eventually that becomes Shaitilya, then you enjoy it. It doesn't even feel like work, because then when that state happens, Ananda Samapatibhyam, that's when the joy and exuberance happens. This is what people were doing in those concentration camps. Those people who kind of got themselves into the flow state, they were not doing something because there was a fear or something. They basically created an environment and where they were like using their abilities in the body and the mind, whatever they had in the moment, and they were deploying themselves into a challenging situation, like, a chess game. And then they were actually trying to push their abilities, keeping themselves, very fresh. And with that, what's happening is, the beauty is, this is while you're continuously trying to get yourself into the flow state, your powers are going to exponentially grow. And the results are going to manifest in a non-linear way. And this is something that I've seen even in the yoga practice. There are people who are always like, they underestimate their ability and even their ability to follow the right technique. And then what they do is they only try to give about 50%, and sometimes not even that. And they be gentle. And by doing that, they never connect to the essence of it. They never experience the joy. And it can be not just yoga class. It can be in a music class. It can be in a painting, or it could be in the work. Right? So always the gauge is, and this is what Patanjali, if you go on YouTube and do a lot of research, and this is something that I really, really recommend for all of us to own this flow state. And I hope this flow state is flow theory is taught in every school and reinforced in almost in every grade, so that people are consciously reminded and make that be as a habit that they could ingrain. So the flow state in a chart, the way it's presented is, you have your skill set, your ability, and the task at hand, the task or the challenge that you're signing up for. Okay, when you're the action, or when the task that you're trying to accomplish, when it is very, very difficult, when it is more than 20% than the skills that you have, your ability, it actually becomes too hard. Then it results in anxiety, and you become stressed, and you don't enjoy. You're always operating in a fear. You're always operating in fear. And when your mind is in that fear, what happens? You act very differently. And at that time, from that insecurity, your true nature is distorted. Your actions are born, and that results in raga, dvesha, avidya, asmita, abhinivesha. And then, sometimes it's like, then people start, going spreading, rumors, and people start wanting to do stuff because, they're trying to secure themselves from a position of insecurity. Another hand, on the flip side, if you have a lot of ability, but you're only given, you're signing up for tasks that are not challenging, then it becomes too easy. Then you become bored. There also, you don't have a sense of fulfillment. You don't have a joy. So the magic is to always create situations such that you have good assessment of your abilities, and you're stretching voluntarily to go more things. Then recently, I had a colleague of mine. And he basically reached out to me and said, Srini, I want to do more. I have a lot of capabilities, and I want to transform, and I want to do a lot of different things, but not many are signed up for this. And many are only wanting to do some basic things. And it feels like very bureaucratic. I'm unable to survive. And I feel like leaving. So this is a situation that we more often we find ourselves in. That could be at home or that could be at work. And most of the time, we relate this to either at home or at work or even in relationships, right? So my response, for deeping, because that situation is very close to home, that all of us experience at some point or the other. So there are two ways to look at that. Number one is, yes, don't accept that as a, number one, karma says that don't accept that as a fate, right? Don't blame the situation. We have the power to change it. Now, the flow state is very real. If you have more capability and you have, but the task that you're given don't challenge you. So either you're bored or let's say if you're bored. So what you need to do is you probably have to shift your attention to different areas of growth for you. Like, for example, if there are people that are not performing well, perhaps, you can actually help develop upeksha, compassion, and then perhaps, help them, or, go sign up for this. Or actually, there was a brilliant talk from CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella. And when he was asked, what is the secret for this massive transformation? And what is the cultural attribute that you're trying to create and in the company? And one of the profound things that he said is, if you can see exuberance in the mundane, if you can keep yourself exuberant even by just doing mundane things. In mundane, if you can actually see exuberance, and that's when you actually become more joyful. And that's the kind of a culture creates transformative environments. So instead of discounting something as, oh, this may not be the right one, or the team is subpar, or it's not the right setting, perhaps develop a sense of curiosity and try to start looking at other people's strength, and then either compassion and go nurture them. And if none of those things work, maybe use the time to go sign up for a skill. Sign up for some coaching sessions, sign up for some leadership, sign up for even some passion. So that, but you always have to create an environment where your ability is matched to the task that you have. Don't only try to go create the flow state in that very myopic situation and then feel that, get caught up either in the stress situation or in the boredom situation. And that is kind of a discussion that we are trying to do. And we are trying to redesign our friend's situation, my situation, so that, it becomes a wholesome, which is like, look at everything. And the flow state is a wholesome experience. It's a wholesome experience. And again, Mihalay has many different artifacts, and he gets into even deeper psychological analysis of our moods, where when the challenges level, the difficulty level, and your abilities, right? What you see at the bottom level is when your abilities far exceed the challenge, you look very relaxed, you look confident, and you look content. But that's also momentary. At some point, it kind of leads into just like, why can't I do more? And in fact, Vivekananda says, if you are given more abilities, go use them in the service of others, because the abilities are nothing but their divine capabilities that are bestowed upon you. And you have to use them in the service of the divine. And that service of the divine is the universe around you. Otherwise, they're wasted. Somehow in the Isha school, that's what is referred to as Ishanga. When you are given some of these extraordinary capabilities, the divine is choosing you to be an expression, or you are essentially becoming a limb of the creator or the divine. And when you are the limb of the creator, you just have to create a better world. You just have to act to create a better world. But if you just feel, tucked in and, relaxed and contented, you're probably limiting the divine expression that is bestowed upon you, that's blessed upon you. And then from there, you become boredom, and then indifferent, and indifferent. And then eventually it may even lead to sadness and depression. And then as the challenges kind of, go increase, then your abilities, then you start getting worried, become stressed. And then that over a persistent time, dukkha daurmanasya. That's what Patanjali said. And it could that persistent worry leads to anxiety. And when your abilities and challenges or getting to align, right? Sometimes when you are trying to do something like a very difficult task in a burst, like for example, you try to sprint or you do a roller coaster, that roller coaster can get you into a temporary arousal state, right? But you don't want to be on a roller coaster all the time, right? So the top right quadrant, like in the Gartner's magic quadrant, is the state that we want to be, where we feel like we are in control of the situation, we are focused, our mind is completely focused, we are happy, and then we have a sense of thrill because we are stretching your abilities voluntarily by about 10 to 20%, not like a roller coaster. And that state is the flow state. And that's flow conditions, as Mihalay explains, that there is a healthy balance between your perception of the challenge and your perception of the existing skills. And you have a clear set of goals. What is the challenge, what it means, and what you broke it down to a clear set of goals. And you have some sense of control over the activity. In the roller coaster, you don't have any control. While, that's the reason, that's an arousal, that's not sustainable. Whereas in other world, you're almost like a cockpit pilot. You're guiding, you're navigating. And you also have a consistent feedback on the progress. You're not driving blindfolded. You have complete feedback. You have data that's feeding back on how well you're doing, and you can navigate the ship. And that is the last one, the ability to adjust actions based on feedback. So in other words, we all need to be pilots of our own flow state. And that is Mihalay's insight. I mean, it's so beautiful how clearly he basically listed. And if we are actually in any situation, like for example, if you're a leader and if you're managing a team, or if you're a parent, and this is the clarity that we need to give to our team members. Your entire job is to get a clear alignment so that your team members, your employees have the opportunity to get into a flow state. And it's one of my goals, or one of my goals is every employee, and sometimes I say this at work, that I feel like everybody feels like they're constantly winning. When they go home, they're in that flow state that I accomplished something meaningful. And I'm actually doing something where it is, is challenging and enough where I'm able to deploy my skills to realize that. And I'm actually heading direction on a clear goal. I have a sense of control. And this is what we owe to ourselves and for the people around us, and help them to get in the flow state, and then act ourselves so that other people have visibility and transparency in what we're trying to do. And then what is that experience? Once those conditions are met, what is that experience of the flow state? When people are acting with that sense of the control and the clear direction, with continuous feedback, where they believe that they're working on something that's it's purposeful and worthwhile. And when you study their things, they are immensely concentrated and focused. Their mind is intensely concentrated and focused. And then eventually they lose the sense of identity, because they're they're working on something that's purposeful, right? I mean, this is what we see, the scientists or astronomers or even entrepreneurs. They lose sense of time, they lose sense of their physicality and the body and the surroundings, because they are totally immersed. They're absorbed in their activity, they're absorbed in the worthiness of the goal, and they're constantly increasing their abilities on a cumulative basis. Because once you are pushing that 10 to 20% in the flow state, and that becomes your new capacity, and then when you again do this as the cumulative 20%, your powers are extraordinarily multiplied, and that results in you achieving even greater things towards the purpose, and you sign up for even greater purposes. And it's that loop. And this is what Patanjali said is the ultimate yogic power, Samyama. And that is something that we all could cultivate. Patanjali defined Samyama as Trayam Ekatra Samyama. When somebody applies simultaneously intense focus and concentration, and constantly meditating on your pursuit, that is the only thoughts, that is the only embellishment that you're doing. And then you're so immersed in it, and you lose your sense of your identity. The difference between subject and object disappears. Only the object, the ardhamatra, only remains. That's what samadhi Patanjali defines. Okay. And when that, only the activity remains. And that basically Patanjali said, when these three mind powers are combined and applied simultaneously in the pursuit of anything, and Patanjali said, yes, you will take control of it. You will achieve that. That is the secret to excellence. And this power can be cultivated. And it's my wish, once the moment I was introduced to this Samyama power, or not Samyama knowledge and the power that it can be cultivated from Sri Ramji's Yoga Sutra lessons and from my practice and stuff. And I really thought that this is some power that's truly inbuilt for every human being. And this is something that we are now losing control of. Our mind is becoming the weakest link in today's world of weapons of mass distraction, particularly our youth, our kids. They're always in Snapchats and WhatsApps and other things. The mind is scattered, and their ability to achieve something is getting diminished. And unfortunately, they're surrendering themselves to assistants, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Snapchats are controlling your life experience, or the Facebook likes. But rather, we can actually regain control of our own mind and our body with the power of yoga, and using this flow state as the framework, we can actually achieve anything that we want. And that is the secret of karma yoga. And the last artifact that I was able to, or at least in my perception, was able to connect the dots is, what is the motive for when you're trying to do an action? What is the purpose, right? When you sign up for something, according to yoga system, we all have 5 layers, or the sheaths of existence. This existence is just one layer, but there are deeper layers within each of us, and there is cosmic bodies, layers of thing, and then the true cosmic body, the Atman that is within us. These 5 sheaths are defined as Annamaya kosha, which is defined by the law of physicality, like the body, the gross level of consciousness. And that is what is manifested as a body, right? Body and the sensory stuff, right? And then the next layer of existence, or the next layer of existence that we all have within is the pranamaya kosha, where it's about our energy, the prana, the essential life force that powers us, prakasha. Patanjali says, when we do pranayama, we actually reduce the smoke, or we remove the smoke that's covering some of our actions. Prakasha avaranam will be removed. So that's the second layer of existence. When you are letting our actions be powered by the light of prana, then our actions are more closer to divine. Then the third one is buddhi, manmaya, the intellect. And when we start using the right intellect, the intellect driven, that means we are thoughtful in our actions. And then it's emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the manmaya kosha, right? It comes from your heart chakra, where it's more of a right brain thinking, right? And sometimes we say it's like ethos, pathos, and logos, right? The pathos, the right brain thinking. And then the next layer of existence is vijnanamaya kosha, the intellectual, the left brain, where we are trying to apply everything based on the right knowledge. And it's not the wrong knowledge, but the right, jnana, like Sankhya, the way to see the things that the way they are. And then the ultimate, the true existence that we have to connect with within us, the true cosmic, or the Brahman, or the Atman within us, is the Anandamaya Kosha, Satchitananda. That's the true eternal consciousness, pure consciousness joy. So we all have these 5 layers of existence. But most of us, because of our conditioning and where we are, we only operate at the gross level of our existence. We are driven by the sensory pleasures and the mind, and we go through all this, kind of stuff. And some of us start purifying ourselves. We invoke some of this, the conscious, the prana activation, and in our actions, be more purified. And then we also have, actions born out of compassion. So the right side, what you see is the motive. When we only operate at the gross sensory level, the motive there, in fact, there are four pursuits, or for every human being, as defined in Sanatana Dharma: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Your pursuit needs to be based on these 4 things. The first one is the Kama. Kama is desire. So when we operate at the Annamaya Kosha, in the world of physicality, driven by your sensory things, the desire, when Kama is the motive, and when you operate at the Annamaya, of course, like what Buddha said, eventually it results in dukkha. Like, if you result on tongue, and if you only start going on, satisfying your tongue based on your thing, like pizzas, donuts, and all that stuff, while it may be seeming like temporary pleasure, the pleasure in the moment, but the final consequence is dukkha. So we always need to understand the motive behind your action. If it's driven by karma as the pursuit, right, at the physicality, then while it may give certain benefits in the short term, but in the longer term, particularly, of course, when the kids are growing up, they need to eat, they need to become stronger, and there is a different phases of life. And at that time, you need to eat the right nutrition and get there. But there is a different phase of life where we are going to unveil the different sheets of existence. And that's why Patanjali said, Pratyahara is the pivot. Once you experience the life at a certain point, then we need to start taking control of our sensory things. And of course, you should never overindulge in anything, no matter where you are, whether you're a kid or adult in this time. But as we are growing up, your ability to indulge in the sensory consumption has to come down. So what it essentially says is, if you're driven by karma and operating at the Annamaya kosha, then the net is you're not in the flow state. Your only outcome is going to be either anxiety or boredom, or ultimate thing is it's a suffering, it's dukkha. And the next thing is artha. If your actions are derived based on artha, where you either want monetary results, monetary outcomes, or fame, or some of those things, then you have to not only operate in the world of physicality, you also need to invoke the deploy the right sources. In other words, invoke the life force and prana, so that you can be successful. Use your mind, improve your focus capability. Start not just operate by the pleasure, but rather start engaging the higher faculties of your existence, like in the prana and some of the buddhi. The mind is going to give you some of the mind capabilities, right? And you can also do exercise and things like that. That's the artha. But as you start moving higher up, when you start driven, your motives for action or to follow the right dharma, to restore the right dharma. In other words, to build harmony within and to build harmony around us. Right? That's what Bhagavad Gita said. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanodharaha, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutihi, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. When you are situated in inner harmony, when your mind is in that harmonious, tranquil place, and in that inner peace, when you express outer dynamism, then when you act, like in the flow state, where you are deploying like Arjuna, where you are deploying all your faculties and stretching to the abilities for the right purpose, because to restore the right dharma, to bring harmony, work for more inclusive and well-being outcomes. And that's when excellence is achieved. That's when flow starts emerging. And then the last pursuit is moksha. Moksha is the final liberation, realization that we are Satchidananda, to be always in that blissful state. That is our true identity. And at that time, you start invoking not just your mind, your intellect, or your thing. You are actually, you have the total Samyama, and you are working, there is no sense of I. You're only working for the well-being of others. And in the service of others, in the service of the well-being of the nature around you, is when you are situated in that, and when you use your identity, and that's when the flow state happens. So when you look at your dharmartha kama moksha, depending upon your phase of life, just be aware of the motive. Are you driven by pleasure? Are you driven by the fame or monetary or some kind of a physical success or material success? Or are you working for the well-being of others? Well-being of others, or restoring dharma, restoring the right harmony. It doesn't mean that you just have to say yes to everything. No, you always, like what we covered in the Dharma Yoga, in the Bhagavad Gita, which is like, whenever there is an unfair status quo, we have to sign up to challenge them, but in a position of harmony, inner peace, outer dynamism, dharma. And then the last thing is we transcend action. It doesn't mean that we are becoming inaction, but for us, action and inaction remain the same. Effort and effortless remain the same. And at that time, you are in that Samyama state, and you're always joyful. And that's the more Samyama that you're there, That's when Tadadrashtuhu Swarupi Avasthana, we connected to our true identity or the Anandamaya kosha. And that's the secret to long-lasting joyful state. It's the beautiful thing here is how what Bhagavad Gita said, what Sanatana Dharma said, and what Patanjali Yoga Sutra said, and Mihalay out of Eastern European, all these truths converge. All truths converge. And they all provide us that guiding light to seek and achieve happiness in every action that we do. Number one, the fact that we are born, we exist in this cosmos, means we sign up for being part of this action. And in this action, we can actually build a flow state. We can build Samyama and make this universe be both inner universe and the outer universe is there. And the other way to look at this is when you operate at the sheaths of existence, when you're acting in physical, breath, emotional, and intellectual, the physical and the breath, you're actually doing Bahiranga sadhana as Patanjali defined. You are actually working more with your outer limbs, right? Your body, your mind, and your body, and you're doing external practices, outward action. But the more you start, doing, engaging into the flow state, intellectual and realization of the ananda, you become more of an antaranga sadhana, because it's totally about inward practices, where your ability to focus, be in meditative, the tranquil mind and the harmonious mind, and totally equilibrium mind. That is a state of being. That's the power of mind that you can cultivate. And then you are in control of the joy. So what it says is, we can actually shift more from external activities to first take control of the mind, the inner practices, build that self and the foundation with that Samyama mind or the flow state mind, and then go act. And at that time, we'll also get the Dhyana Jamakshama, Dhyana Jama Karma. In other words, the actions will also become residue free, and we break out of the cycle. And I want to end today's session with one of the quotes from Mihalay. Where it says, "It's not enough to be happy to have an excellent life. It's not enough to be happy to have an excellent life. The point is to be happy while doing things that stretch our skills, that help us grow and fulfill our true potential." And we all have that infinite potential. It's not just about being happy with whatever the little things that we accumulate, and then be joyful, and then engage in sensory and kind of monetary kind of transactions. It is realizing our true potential, be that infinite, aham brahmasmi, and that is a process. It's a transformation, and that is at some level is the inspiration. This philosophy is the inspiration behind the 10 YEC, where we can all cultivate the youth, the eternal youth, the bliss and excellence in all of us. Youth, excellence, you. That's our true identity, and that is what Tattvamasi. And that's what my greatest joy in studying all the scriptures is. My flow state is when I see how people from different parts of the world, speaking different languages, grown up in different cultures, but they all arrive at the same truth. And as it said in our scriptures, ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. The truth is one, absolute. But many express it and perceive it in different modalities. The modalities are different. but the essence is the same. So with that, Mihalay is one of the avatars of sage Patanjali, Bhagwan Krishna. And his flow state is one of the tools that we could all take to in our daily lives, in all the actions that we do. And then again, action is every moment we have a conscious choice to be in harmony and then act. And that needs to challenge our abilities by about 10 to 20% and voluntarily. And it also needs to have a purpose that is much bigger than something that is inclusive and creates for a more universal well-being. So with that, we'll end today's session. Everybody, close your eyes. We'll chant Om 3 times. Take a deep breath. One more, take another deep breath. Last one. Adi Shankara says, in the satsang of the knowledge and the people like Mihalay, in their presence, in their blessings, and contemplating in their thoughts and in their presence, in our actions, is going to ultimately result in the bliss. In Bhajagovindam, Adi Shankara says, Satsangatve nisangatvam nisangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischalatatvam nishalatatve jivan mukti. In the right association of the knowledge, the food, and the people, and the thoughts, those things will liberate us also into the nisangatvam, where we realize the knowledge that we cannot be attached to the possessions and the things. And from there, we lose our ahankara and the vanity. And ultimately, that results in realizing our true identity, which is Satchidananda, and realizing the true existence, which is the Anandamaya kosha, or cosmic body, or cosmic identity. This wonderful thought, let's do the final chant. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sikinaha Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We wish everybody to be happy. We wish everybody to be free of sorrow and illness. We wish everybody to see only auspicious things, and let there be peace everywhere. With this wonderful thought, rub your palms, generate the fire and love of knowledge. Cup your eyes to transmit this knowledge, to seek the right vision, seek the blessings for the right vision, right divine vision, to see the things the way they are. Divyam dadamite chakshu. And slowly and gently, with a bright smile, open your eyes. Thank you all for sharing our yoga journey together. We'll meet again in the next session. Namaskaram, Guru Garu. Well,
Jai Guru. Yes.